is menstruation. It's huge amounts of healing vibrations. Religion versus spirituality. I mean, sex sells, right?
And turns you into peanut butter. As a child, I always loved adventure. And as I grew up, I always picked activities that took me on that adventure, especially with my family. And at a young age, my father would always tell me about the stories of him going down these rafting trips. And over this past summer, we planned a rafting trip together to float down the Colville River in Alaska. We floated in my prop plane and rafted for over the period of a month for 300 miles to grizzly-infested land. This photo behind me was taken at 3 o'clock in the morning. The river is located so far north that it's sunny for 24 hours a day. And throughout this time, I would have hours on end to explore by myself, walking up empty riverbeds. And I remember on one of my longer walks, I looked up at the sky and I thought to myself, damn, I'm really far away from anything right now. Over 200 miles separating me from anybody finding me other than my dad. And then it occurred to me, my dad could leave me if he wanted to. He could hop into the boat and start to float downstream, and I would have no idea how far he went or why, but he just did. And so I turned around and started walking back, and started to feel sick and nauseous, and I started jogging and then sprinting. And after 10 minutes of running back to the camp, I pulled all the rocks out of my pockets I had collected. I even had a fossil with me. And I thought to myself, I've been abandoned. This is it. I'm just, oh. And, but of course, as I was running up the riverbed, I saw my dad still sleeping under the shade of a tree and the boat floating in the river. And the biggest relief came over me. You can believe me or not, I was trying to fall in love with the idea of being out there. Being out there gave me this peace of mind. I had this clear connection to the land and the water flowing through it. At a young age, my mother and father always taught me to be at peace with the world, to take it all on as another part of life. And with that, I made some of the best decisions in my life that took me to places and to people I'll never forget, especially in the outdoor community. And being a part of an outdoor community, either kayakers, surfers, skiers, climbers, each outdoor community I've ever witnessed has always played in the role of the conservation of the landscape that drove their sport. It makes sense. Doug Tompkins was a climber. He was also one of Chile's greatest activists. In the 1960s, he bought up 800,000 acres of land in a strip through Patagonia to deny road access to large vehicles bringing in damming, logging, and mining equipment. When I traveled down to Patagonia, I traveled through one of Doug Tompkins' private owned preserves. And I was informed that Doug Tompkins didn't buy that one strip of land. This valley behind me would have been flooded for hydroelectricity. And thanks to Doug Tompkins and his love for climbing, it's still here today. What I realized from this experience was that my longing for adventure was also my way of further connecting to the wild. So during my 10th, 11th year of high school, I joined a program called World Class Academy. The premise of the school is to give kids the opportunity to kayak all over the world, as well as obtain a full high school education while simultaneously learning about cultures. And throughout this time, the school would always be visited and visiting activist groups trying to stop the damming of rivers. And it was because these groups knew that kids like us, these rowdy, dirty teenagers, were some of the most committed to stopping something like a dam. In the 2 years, I traveled from Canada, Costa Rica, Colombia, Mexico, Chile. But one of the most powerful lessons for me was when we would return from these visits, I would witness kids going back to their dorms or back to their tents and blogging for hours, trying to spread the awareness of the ecological consequences dams have in our world. They'll be posting pictures like this, very controversial, but extremely powerful for the right minds. But for me, it's not just the rivers I was drawn to. It was wilderness in its entirety. Because beyond the river, this experience of living outdoors, I gained an even deeper connection to the wild. Because imagine, for 2 years, my sleeping bag was my bed, the stars my ceiling, and then this power made me feel small and insignificant, but happy. And it made me realize that all of this is much bigger than me. This made me think about the motivation it takes to make any significant shift in one's life, to become more aware of the actions that we take as humans. Because how can we expect people to make any significant sacrifice if they have no personal connection? If people don't experience a personal connection, where do they gain any motivation? So what does it take to create a compelling desire? It's the personal connection. I had a turning point when I realized I had this personal connection. I was working in Sequoia National Park in California over the summer of 2016. I remember I was hiking the High Sierra Trail with my boss to cut out a fallen tree 10 miles from the trailhead. I remember looking up at the 8,000-foot marker, and I saw this man, and I thought he was a mountain homesteader coming out from behind these woods. He was covered from head to toe in dirt, a beard over his entire face, and this long, red, dusty hair falling past his shoulders. And as he approached me, I started to get a little worried, but I could somehow recognize his clothes. And his backpack spilling out with his old cans and random cloths. As he got closer, I soon realized that this man was just another park worker. He'd just come off a 3-month backcountry duty and was headed for civilization after hiking 30 miles in the wilderness just to get some peanut butter back at base camp. When I saw this man, covered in the true sense of hard work, I really understood the purpose of why we were all out there in the trail crew. We all knew that each day we were bringing more and more people down these paths to give more and more people the opportunity to establish their own relationships. So when I moved back to Bali after this 2-year experience, it was difficult for me. I couldn't seem to find that same sense of adventure. I had lost part of that connection. And so I decided to try to regain that connection through my Greenstone project. And that's where I came up with the Simple Living Adventure, which I build and live a completely self-sustained life in a treehouse in the jungle of Bali. And so I started building mid-March this year. And to be honest, by the second week I was ready to quit. It was really difficult. And I consulted with my mentor, Pop Jason, and he just told me, keep it simple. Don't think about it too much. What he really meant was work harder. And so most days I would go after school and work for a few hours. It was then when I had my hardest lesson. I realized I could not do this on my own. And when I was working on the shelter, I reached up to grab a branch and pull it down to make room for the floor, and I slipped. And I wedged myself, and I fell, and I wedged myself between a sapling and the mother tree, and was stuck. But luckily I didn't fall all the way through, because if I did, I would have fallen 50 feet down into this gully where I quite possibly couldn't have walked out of. Luckily I only walked away with a slightly cracked rib and a couple of scrapes, but extremely fortunate. As a result, I couldn't work like I was before. So I decided to focus on the food preservation side of things. In order to live a simple life in the tropics, I had to have some knowledge about food preservation and storage. Because I wanted to have produce that wouldn't go off or get eaten by mice and insects. So I did some research and I realized that fermentation was my answer to this problem. So over the 4th block of school, I joined the Leap Academy. And along with 4 other students, we started experimenting with the fermentation process, while simultaneously teaching classes to our local community and making booklets to give out to people that were interested. We ended up making kimchi, sauerkraut, kombucha, and a variety of pickles, all very basic foods, but perfect for living a simple lifestyle. As I gathered more and more materials, I realized something was still missing. I'm a meat eater, and that was going to be a given. And I wanted to know how I can bring meat out with me without it going spoiled. That's when I found the magical world of aquaponics. And for those of you who don't know, aquaponics is a system of growing food that uses the precious nitrogen. This is the fermentation. that uses the precious nitrogen in fish waste to grow plants, and in return, the plants clean the water for the fish. So I found an organic aquaponics farm not too far from my house, and I offered to volunteer. And upon talking to the experts, they informed me that the fish, once they got to a certain size, they would butcher and cold smoke them, drying them out completely, making it able to last months outside of the refrigerator, also perfect for me to take out into my adventure. And so after working a couple weeks, I gained enough credit to take a sufficient amount home with me. But still, the treehouse was not finished. I still had to finish the deck and the roof. And so, along with the help of my friend Jetson, we hiked up the river and cut enough bamboo to float down the river in a makeshift raft to build the rest of the floor. I offered to hop onto it and float down through the rapids, guiding it, as all the local women were yelling at me, thinking I was just a crazy boule. They were. But once we finished the deck, I thought I was really close to finishing. I would tell people, oh yeah, I just have to throw up a roof and it'll be simple, easy. But let me tell you, a Leeland roof is not a single day process. It took me 4 days with the help of Gabrielle, Pop Jason, his daughter Luna, the only 10-year-old I know that can really work a drill, and myself. And once we finished with the roof, tying the traditional way, I walked away with an unbelievably great understanding and appreciation of how much work went into rebuilding our school. But when I built the treehouse, I did it to make a statement. It was to go find your adventure. Get yourself out into the wild because it will truly enrich your life. When I was out there, I would have this overwhelming sense of security, but also this fear. Robert Haller is a philosopher I admire, and he refers to fear as excitement without breathing. So whenever I felt the bugs crawling up my back, or the toques crying their calls next to my head, or the idea of doing this presentation, I'll just remember to breathe. But still, the first night out there, the elements were always in control. Rain was pouring in through the sides of the roof, bugs and mystery critters were taking refuge on my stomach and on the floor, and all seemed pretty hopeless till the morning. I would bike to school with the anxiety of knowing that I had to return to the discomfort of this treehouse. I even told myself, I can give up right now. I built the treehouse, I worked the gardens. I could stop and no one would think that much less of me. But I didn't give in, and I said I'd keep it going for at least one more day. And it wasn't until I returned to the treehouse, sat on my floor, and completely let myself go to this wildness, accepting the peace of mind that it accepted, or that it gave to me. And all of a sudden, this sense of unlimited possibility appeared in the complete silence. And boredom was no longer an issue, but awareness became the practice. And from then on, every day, living got easier and easier. I'd wake up in the morning with a smile on my face, the leaves falling off my bare chest to eat my breakfast of kimchi and fruit. And I'd bike to school. I even had a former teacher, Zach Rez, come and visit me on the 5th day to interview me and speak on behalf of the project. However, I do recognize not everyone likes being outside. Some people feel safer fulfilled in the safety of their homes. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I do believe that everybody has an ecological point of entry. And by that, I mean everybody can find a way in which they can connect to the wild on a personal level. For myself, it's my sense of adventure. For others, it may be enough of an eye-opening experience to get out in the garden and see the meaning of where food comes from. For me, I know this is something I'll be doing for the rest of my life. Nature cures me. Being in the wild heals me. So my suggestion to you is to get out there in some way that calls you. Because the more people that see the love, and the more people will feel inclined to protect it. So, find your adventure. Thank you.